Hello, everybody. This is Petra Lohmeyer from the Nevelle podcast. And somebody seems to be really nice to me just now because there was this loud noise outside for literally hours. And the second I turned on this camera, the noise stopped. So somebody has been nice. Maybe it's going to start again. I hope not. But big changes are coming. I don't know exactly what these changes will be, if these changes are only going to affect me, or if they are going to affect more people, or if they are going to affect a whole lot of people. And I'm not talking about changes in the environment in terms of jobs, like 40 or 50% will lose their jobs or something like that, but something that may happen in the next few weeks. I don't know exactly what it will be. But these feelings, when I get them, are not necessarily always on time what's happening, but something is usually happening. So I'm just warning you, if this podcast will suddenly disappear, or I suddenly don't do it anymore, there are a lot of past episodes, and I think you've got the point by now that there are a lot of win-win situations out there, and that people are already taking part in them and are taking advantage of them. And if you want to see more, will probably, no matter what happens, depending on what it is, still be posting things on LinkedIn, even if the podcast doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen that often. Welcome to my life, by the way. This happens on a regular basis. I just don't usually say that I know that something is coming because I don't usually have people necessarily depending on me when these changes are happening, but this is a podcast now. So if you want to see more episodes, take a look at the podcast itself. There are a lot of episodes there, and I will link it here. I also have some other podcasts that may be interesting to you, and they are linked in some of the other episodes. I made sure that they are linked quite often. And we also have, which I've not mentioned really before, a win-win course, which I recorded quite a while ago. It is in German, though, because I think in the English-speaking space, there are quite a few people already who are taking advantage of these win-win situations. While in the German space, a lot of people seem to be completely unaware that they exist and don't seem to really understand them. So I thought in the German space it was more important. I don't know if they are interested in looking at this, but they do have access if they want to. At the moment, it is for available actually just for €1 on Gumroad. And I will also link that. It will go up after the first few founding members. For a few more people, it will be available quite cheaply, and then it will go to the regular price. Anyway, so this is the commercial right in the beginning, just in case you will shut off once I tell you what this podcast is about today, because it may be the last one. I don't know. And initially, I wanted to talk about outcomes, but I'm actually talking about building bridges, because sometimes you have to be the bridge in between. If you have two parties who are fighting with each other, and you know both sides from the inside, that sometimes it is your task to try to connect them, to try to show each side what the other has and where they have things in common that they can build on in order to build peace. But that doesn't necessarily mean that both of those sides actually want to have peace. And sometimes they are just both shooting at you or burning down the bridge on their end. And in a normal bridge, that bridge would usually then fall to the ground and crumble. In this case, there may be another direction of the path. I don't know. Let's see. It may look very different from the outside than it will feel from the inside. But again, I don't know exactly what's going to be happening. But in this podcast, this one, the vision, where do we want to land? Just as a recap from the last one. Remember the soil video I posted? Someone reposted it, and I can finally give you the credit with the man who actually recorded it. It was Wim van Egmond. And we had that theme quite a bit recently, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without. And sometimes you kind of ask yourself, okay, is this one of these cases, or can I really trust this? But in terms of nature, it is really beautiful how everything is connected. I just saw a post today on LinkedIn, which I also posted on, and you will see the LinkedIn handle here. which basically said that the Sahara sand is necessary for the Amazon on the other side of the world to bring nutrients there so that the Amazon then can produce the oxygen for us. So it really is all connected in ways that are absolutely wondrous. And I've seen some of the synchronicities in my life as well, where I sometimes just thought, how is this even possible? It is a wondrous universe we are living in. Our lungs look just like the branches of a tree, which are basically our external lungs. Our legs and feet look like the stem and the roots of a tree as seen from above. Our fingerprints look like the rings of a tree. The creases in our hands look like the vessels in a leaf. And our blood vessels look just like the roots of a plant or a tree. There's a reason for that. All life shares the same patterns. All life comes from the same source. And if you take a look at quantum physics, they now tell you, apparently that is mathematically proven somehow. Don't ask me because my math isn't that great, at least not to that level. Apparently, in the smallest particles that we have in this universe, the entire universe is encoded. And as far as I know, they found that out at Google, or found something out at Google that really scared them. That's why they shut off their quantum computer. But as far as I know, it is on again. And it has just managed to do some calculations 130,000 times faster than any computer that is a conventional computer. So the future is here. And I've also forgotten to say this, and given that I'm saying that maybe this is the last episode, this is a weird place to put this. But if you like any of our episodes, or you may have not liked all of it, but got some value from it, an idea or a different direction, please like, subscribe, and share. I should have said that a lot earlier so that more people benefit from this, but maybe your friends will benefit from it now. So the role of faith, we also had that. Jane Goodall's final message to us was not to lose hope. Now, there may be a few more obstacles, and last time they were obstacles that others put into our way, as we explored last time, like that maybe the powerful on this earth put in our way, us being environmentalists, and no one really likes to look at themselves, and it feels almost sacrilegious to do that if you like nature and you take a look at what environmentalists do, because it kind of feels like aiding and abetting the enemy. But if we really want to help those that we say we want to help, maybe sometimes we also need to take a look at ourselves. And if you don't want to do that, you may want to shut off now. But if you are interested in some of the things that I have seen, or that I think that I have seen in our movement, that may actually hinder those who are trying to help us and hinder our progress, then please do stay, and maybe it will help you. Because what are we really fighting for? Do we still remember? Some of us have gotten a bit too used to being victims and to knowing who the enemy is, and we may have lost the flexibility to react and just adjust the map. And this is the first point of 4 points that I wanted to make today, and I will go into more detail in the next slide. And then there's the comfortable feeling that we get when we are right. And I had that in the last podcast as well, and of being better than our enemies. And that feeling really doesn't want to be challenged. And I'm going to go into why that is. And trusting the money people, they're just out to fool us, right? As usual. That's number 3. And no, there have to be compromises, and they have to make them. That is number 4. What is the problem with that statement? Well, let's take a look. Is it possible that we ourselves, just as the companies, may sometimes get stuck in a mindset of the past? Is it possible? Are we fighting to be right? Are we fighting to be better than those others? Or are we fighting to protect someone? Are we fighting to renew someone? So let's take a look at that. Let's explore that. Some of us have gotten a bit used to being victims. That was the first point. What do I mean by that? Well, the terrain has changed. And if we really want to get where we want to go, then we have to change as well. Why? Well, if you have a map, say you want to, I give this example quite often, if you want to get from, say, Lake of Constance to Stuttgart, and you have a map in front of you, and you know you have to go right and left and then right and then right again and then left, and then you go straight on for quite a while, and you do that, then that will work. But only if you're actually at the Lake of Constance at a certain town that the map tells you. If you're actually in Berlin and you do the same thing, you go north and go right and left and right and then straight on again, you will end up in the North Sea. That doesn't work. The terrain has changed. Also, if there's suddenly say, a bridge that collapsed, you're going to have to take a different route. Or if somebody has built a bridge that you didn't have before, maybe you can go over the bridge and get there so much faster. And if you take the road on the outside, you will actually harm your cause. So what has changed? Consequences to humans are more obvious now than they were 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. The consequences of climate change I'm talking now about now, and the consequences of destroying nature. The rich have been hit. They had villas in the Caribbean that were hit by storms. They had whole neighborhoods in LA that were destroyed, Valencia, fires everywhere. But that's not only their own homes, it hits their businesses. It hits their supply chains. Suddenly they can't get supplies anymore. I mean, we see that with the Ukraine especially, but it's also because of climate change. And it has become so costly for banks and insurances, they need to price this in. It's actually regulation that they need to price these um, climate change events in, and that's in the regulations themselves. The ECB was actually one of the first ones who was talking about this. And if the money people are talking about this, there must be a problem, but that also means that they are now addressing it, which may make a little bit more of an impact than me going out on the weekend and planting a couple of trees, although that is a good thing. But if it's just me and 12 of my friends, we're not going to make much of a difference. If it is a company that gives 100,000 to a big cause, like taking carbon out of the atmosphere, that makes a whole lot more of a difference. And we need to acknowledge that too. It doesn't matter why they're doing it. And that is another thing. Tech advances, materials, conventional tech has become much better, and AI makes developments much faster everywhere. According to Peter Diamand's latest post on Substack, which is called Metatrends, and which I can really recommend. I don't always like everything that's on there, especially if it has to do with medicine. Not because I don't like longevity, but because I don't like animals being tested on. But even that is being changed now because there are models now that they can use, which is the one thing that I really, really do appreciate. And AI will not only increase the lifespan and eradicate poverty, but also enable sustainable clean energy at scale. Energy abundance is a substrate for everything else. That's what he says. Without it, nothing else on the list matters. And the list he is giving, AI will help us discover sustainable materials and optimize energy systems in ways humans never could, help accelerate fusion. I don't know how excited you are about fusion, but a lot of the rich are excited about it. It's certainly better than oil, probably. Develop room temperature superconductors, discover new battery chemistries, meaning that batteries are going to be less toxic and also need less of the materials that we don't want them to mine on Earth. And on top of that, they may actually mine them on asteroids. There was a company already that was doing that, but it shut down again because they didn't have enough investors, because apparently the investors thought that it wasn't necessary. So now they are just fighting each other in wars to get the material out of Ukraine, for example, instead of getting it from an asteroid where nobody cares. But hey, it's men, right? Anyway, well, we like to blame other people. I like to blame men. It's always men at fault, right? Enable next generation solar. Nothing against the men that are nice men. AI will solve the optimization problems. Peter Diamandis seems to be a nice guy. Otherwise, he's very positive. To speed up the adoption of renewables. And there's so many other nice men out there. that I sometimes meet. Abundant, clear energy will be harvested, stored, and traded locally in every region of the world. All itself, AI itself, should be interested in that. Why? Because it needs huge amounts of energy at the same time. And why are we interested if AI is interested in that? Well, because some of the other really, really rich people are saying that AI will take over as the emergent intelligence on this planet. And if it will take over, then we are rather interested that AI will be interested in the same things that we are. And abundant clean energy should be one of these things, because it can't be in an AI's interest when there's fires and climate events everywhere, because it destroys their infrastructure, right? They have infrastructure too. And also, if the biosphere is destroyed, well, AI, how does it grow? It grows from input. And the more diverse the biosphere is, and the better it works, the better input it gets. It will get a lot more input on an Earth that is abundant, that is beautiful, where the balance is restored, than on a planet like Mars, where you only have solar winds and whatever you have there, storms or whatever, right? So that is a good thing, and maybe we should point that out a little bit more often, just to make sure that, it is heard. At the same time, we cannot depend on solutions that we can do at home or on the weekend anymore. Sustainable solutions need to be adopted by big industry, and they must be scaled. And for that, a huge amount of investment is needed. Investment means money, right? And yet, instead of looking at what industrial players do and reinforcing the good things they are doing, and they are sometimes doing good things, and I post them on quite often, environmentalists like us are still fighting big money a lot of times. The Green Party here in this country was fighting money, big money. Well, what sense does that make? They're supposed to help. How are they going to help if you fight them, especially if you fight them at every turn, even when they do something good? That's not how this works, right? You need to build bridges sometimes. I do love Diane Fossey. Diane Fossey was an incredible woman, and she got killed doing what she believed in. But Jane Goodall found another way. And maybe Jane Fossey didn't have that way, but maybe some of us, Jane Goodall, can do what Jane Goodall did, because Jane Goodall didn't, when she saw the plight of the chimps, she of course wanted to help the chimps as well, just as Diane Fossey wanted to help the gorillas. But what she then also saw was why people were doing this, because of the poverty around, and she saw that she had to do something against the poverty, otherwise there would be no chance that they would help her with the chimps. So she did something against the poverty. She did this Roots and Shoots initiative, and founded that basically, and helped people around the nature reserves, and they then helped her with the chimps. And the same thing we kind of need to do with big industry players as well, because if they don't help us, we are not going to do it in our free time on the weekend. I mean, at least most of us won't, unless you're really, really good with AI and quantum computing. You have one in your basement and you can just figure out how to get the carbon out of the atmosphere, right? Maybe a better idea if we get some of the big players on board who want to help us, and they're already doing it. Even the ones that you wouldn't think of as interested in this kind of thing, even people who are making weapons, are investing into industries that take carbon out of the atmosphere. They just don't advertise it, because they would immediately be attacked by somebody who would point out that they are just doing it for their own reasons. So what? To do it for their own reasons. Also, if they have a profitable enterprise, they have to make a profit. It's just how a profitable enterprise works. Otherwise, they get problems with their shareholders. They get problems with the government if there is no liquidity there anymore, and if they are illiquid. They can't pay their employees. Most of us are employees. Let's not forget that. Most of us get mortgages from banks that we hate so much. And most of us also have a pension fund, which, by the way, is paid into by our employer and kept at a bank where it multiplies its investments. So the world isn't as black and white as we think it is. It is so easy to point at somebody else. And yes, they are doing bad stuff sometimes. I mean, I know I was inside sometimes and they were doing bad stuff to me. I don't say that they are absolute angels, but if they're doing something good, then reinforce them, right? Now, why won't we do that? Because it's really not about us and not about being right, not about being better than them and showing them at every turn that we are better than them. That, but it is about protecting others. And if it is somebody like Suntory, for example, which is my favorite example, they bought nature reserves and woodlands 20 years ago already and protected them to protect the groundwater. So what if they did it in order to protect their biggest resource, the groundwater? I mean, it helps everyone. It helps the people around. It helps the wood themselves, and it helps the newt that is still sitting in its pond. So I think being too eager to point the finger at every flaw can be a problem as well. You have to keep people accountable, but you also have to see when they're doing something right and point to that and help them point to that. Because then if you reinforce that, it is like with your child when it learns how to walk. Every time it falls, you may not always pick it up again. It depends on what your parenting style is. But if it does something right, then you applaud it. And that is what you should be doing, or what we should be doing with big industry as well, if they do something right. Now, this last one was basically an addiction to problems, an addiction to being the victim, which is a big thing nowadays, which is actually an addiction. According to Tony Robbins, it is one of the biggest addictions today because it gives us attention, it gives us significance because we've got so much bigger problem than everybody else. But just like addiction to problems, there is an addiction to significance itself today. If you go to an Antonio Robbins event, and I have gone to quite a few of them, and yes, they are expensive, but I found them very, very worthwhile in other ways, which I'm not going to expand on in this particular podcast. But if you go to them, then he will always come to this point where he talks about his 6 human needs psychology. And I'm not going to expound that here because I'm not authorized to do so in an audience that is more than 10 people. And believe it or not, some of these podcasts have been seen by more than 10 people. But I think he's going to be okay if I just mention that there are two um, needs that everybody has, that, however, if they are on top, can be a problem. That's certainty and significance. So certainty is that you're comfortable, that you're secure, and significance is that you're better than, or that you're important, or that you are special in some sort of way. And everybody finds that a way to be that. And there are good ways of how you can be special. You can be special by, for example, inventing a great medicine that cures cancer. That makes you special. You can be a firefighter who saves people. That makes you special. But you can also be important to people by pointing a gun at them, because suddenly you're going to be very important to them, and that is why violence is still there. That is also the example that he gives. And one of the easiest ways to be significant and important is to tear everybody else down, tear the other person down. You will see that on the internet quite a lot. And it is very tempting to do, and it is my flaws, certainly, one of my flaws. I've got so many of them, but it certainly is one of my flaws that is something that I point to, and there are reasons for that. A lot of people learn that from their siblings. Some learn it by watching others in their childhood already, and it is pretty difficult to get rid of this, but it is easier when you are actually aware of it. So do we want to get rid of this? If the other person, if we tear them down, then we look so much better. Isn't that great? Well, no, not really, because who do we really serve? Will we really make anything better by tearing somebody else down? Now, no, we are not making anything better, especially if it's a company that just started out doing the right thing, and then we tear them down and they say, you know what? F you, we are just doing what we always did, and then they don't do anything anymore and they don't improve anymore. That is not what we want. So what is our real outcome? We really want to help the weak, right? We want to help our own species. We want to help other species. If we really care about nature and other creatures, is that really what we should be concentrating on? Tearing others down? No. Or should we just sometimes swallow our pride and acknowledge that the guy that we've been fighting for the last 20 years has finally done something good and deserves some acknowledgement for that as well, even if they have hurt us deeply in the past? And I do know how that feels like. Because if we don't and he listens, we keep him stuck in the bad and in hurting those that we actually want to protect. So that is something to consider. Now, coming to trusting the money people. Can we really trust the money people? Nah. I mean, they're just fooling us as usual, right? They're just greenwashing and stuff. Some of them will. Some of them will fool us. Some of them will sometimes not fool us and sometimes fool us again. And sometimes they will do something good and turn it into something bad. Or they take something bad, turn it into something good because it looks good for marketing, whatever. Some really have that apex predator attitude, and that may be a good thing if it's just strength that is used in the right way, but it is in psychopathic strength that is not a good thing because they will never be on your side. As you know, I just heard an ex-CIA agent say, better have the psychopath on your side than on the side of the other, but they are never on your side. They're on their own side. They will side with you when it's in their own interest. And then if somebody else is stronger and you're in trouble, then they will side with them. It's the nature. That's what they do. But being good doesn't mean being weak. And that is what a lot of people misunderstand. And being good doesn't always mean being nice. There's also something like tough love, for example. And a lot of us, I think, don't understand that because they see that somebody is doing something tough, is doing something that may even hurt some people. But if you're swimming in a shark tank, you better don't show weakness. And sometimes these people are good people, but they're doing things in a different way than we are used to. And we cannot live without them if we want to get to our goal. Because if we're just always the victims and just always the nice people and the pushovers, we cannot protect our own. You know, if you take a look at someone like Aslan, for example, in the Narnia novels, he is protecting his own. He is incredibly kind. He's incredibly loving, but he can also be incredibly fierce to his enemies. That is the kind of strength you need. And sometimes this fierceness may scare you if you're standing right next to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the man is bad. It just means that he's a lot stronger than you and that scares you. But you need him on your side, right? It's very easy to just accuse people of being evil because they have money. It doesn't solve the problem. It's a lot harder to actually look at everything they do in detail and not just try to find all the things they do bad, but also the things they do good. Because otherwise, at some point, they won't help us anymore unless they are self-motivated. So there are, as I said, weapons manufacturers that have started and funded carbon startups. Now, I'm not a big fan of weapons manufacturers, but if they're doing something good, then I will still acknowledge it, right? It's not about greenwashing all the time, and sometimes this greenwashing crying doesn't help. You know, sometimes it isn't perfect, but it's better than it was before, and that needs to be acknowledged as well. And you know what I'm really missing in the whole discussion? I'm missing the real love. That is what we were in for. And some of us seem to agree with the psychopaths that seem to think that love is weakness. But I mean, go to an event of Tony Robbins, for example, and he can be one of the most loving people in the world. He starts crying at the drop of a hat, but you get on his wrong side and you don't want to be there. Trust me, there is no weakness in that. And you will find people who are badasses at work who will absolutely be drawn in by him and will be dancing and will be crying and will be loving. And that is a power. It's a superpower. It's energy. If you are loving without being ashamed of it, it is one of the most incredible feelings and one of the most energizing feelings that you can ever have. Now, if I go to an event with environmentalists nowadays, though, they will fall all over themselves to show how tough they are and that they don't feel anything when an animal is killed, or that just put a beetle into a little vial and don't care at all that that beetle is expending so much energy trying to get out of that vial and is so scared, energy that he might not have for his mission then afterwards. That's not what that's not what we are about. We are about helping animals. We are not trying to stress them. We are not trying to show everyone how hard-hearted we are. That's the whole point, is that we aren't. The whole point is to see the beauty in nature and acknowledge it and celebrate it together. So loving is not weakness. But we have sometimes been petrified by psychopaths who have used information on us when we talked about what we love. So we stopped living. So that they can't use it against us anymore. And I do understand that. I worked in an investment bank for a long time, and you don't tell people about your personal life so that they can't use it. But that means they won. If you don't, even with your own people, talk about love anymore and the joy and enjoy seeing animals being happy, I mean, you've lost most of life. So I had once this trainee in an investment bank, and she actually, and that shocked the hell out of me. I was talking about psychopaths, and the psychopaths actually don't have the ability to. They do have the ability to feel, as far as I understand. I'm not one of them, but that is how it is explained to me. They do have the ability to feel, but they can only feel hatred and resentment and bad feelings. The good feelings they're just faking because they got feedback when they were young that it's not good just to show the bad feelings. So they got really good at faking positive emotions. Right. And I was explaining that to a trainee when I was in an investment bank, and she said, "Oh my God, that is what we all want." And it shocked the hell out of me. I mean, she wanted to be feelingless. She didn't want to be able to feel good emotions anymore because she had been hurt so much. I mean, how incredibly sad is that? She would let go of everything that makes life worth living just so that she can show strength to some people that we don't even like. I mean, that is not what it's about. And I did feel like a psychopath for about a week. And I'm not saying that I was, I was angry, but I wasn't violent towards anyone. But something happened. I did some meditation. I don't know what happened exactly, but I did a meditation and something went wrong. And suddenly it was like I didn't have a heart anymore. I couldn't feel any kind of positive emotions anymore. I could just feel rage and it cost me my computer. Um, it, and there was nobody around, so I didn't hurt anyone, except people who may have watched me, without authorization. But it was I wouldn't want this for my enemy. I mean, it was the most miserable week I've ever had in my entire life. And I went to one of these events that were all about love. And the first full day, they were trying to make me feel good, and I couldn't feel any of it. I was just so resentful. And since I'm not a psychopath, and I didn't grow up pretending to be nice and pretending to have nice feelings. I didn't pretend anything either, and I was really hurtful to people around me, and I could see it, and I didn't care, and it was the most uncomfortable feeling ever. And it took until the second day, about midday, when suddenly there was this huge pain in my chest, and suddenly something dissolved, and then suddenly I could feel again. It took a while for the good feeling to come back in full strength, but I could suddenly feel it opening again. And it was the most relief I've probably had in my life, because I couldn't have gone on living like that. And that must be like how psychopaths feel. You don't want to feel like that. And you don't want to make yourself feel like that just to protect yourself from them. There is a power in love. And if it's outgoing, not just ingoing, there is now we're going into spirituality a little bit, but there is energy in love, right? And normally if you love someone, you put out energy, but you also take it in, right? If you see an animal, for example, and it's cute, then you take it in, and then if it gets hurt, that is what hurts you so much, because it's coming in. But you can also love outgoing, and the energy flows out, and then it is a lot stronger. It is, and I have had situations where I'm not entirely sure what happened, but somebody came at me at full strength, and that was a very, very, very powerful man. And I was fully in this love cycle outwards, and whatever came to me just bounced off. And that is what spirituality actually tells you is happening. So I can't always do this. That was, I think I had some help there. I don't know who that was, but it is, love is not weak. And I think we need to remember that. That is just in between. I had that thought yesterday night when I was celebrating a little bit after I had written this presentation already. Um, Anyway, so one of the other pet peeves that I had was environmentalists stuck in the past, and that was also something that happened just recently, and I got a little bit upset with the guy, and it's not his fault. It's just that it's happened so many times, and I just I can talk about win-win situations between humans and nature until the cows come home, but afterwards, somebody always comes up to me and says, "Oh, it's really good that you found this balance between the needs of nature and business, and how great it is to do such compromises." This is the point. It's not about compromises. It's not about balance. Yes, of course, sometimes you need balance. In some situations, balance is needed, but the whole win-win point is that both people win. That's why it's called win-win situation. It's not called win-lose situations or lose-lose situation. A compromise is a lose-lose situation where both people lose a little bit, and then maybe have a little bit something as well. And sometimes we just want companies to give up what they have. Then it's a win-lose. We win, they lose. That's not the point. The point of win-win situations is have win-win situations where both win. And I think some environmentalists just can't get their head around this, because they're so stuck in the past where we were talking about balance the whole time, we were talking about compromises the whole time, that they can't even get this concept in their head that there is a win-win. And they're making it really hard for companies to do something good, and also their own life really hard by framing it that way, because they always frame it in a negative way. If you talk to a company and you talk about compromise, or you talk about balance, they always think lose, because that is what ends up happening. But it's not, the world looks different now. It's not necessary anymore. So examples of that, Elon Musk, for example, he didn't make fuel cars and then decided to do electric cars and survived, but made a little bit less money than he did with the fuel cars. No, he did electric cars and became the richest man in the world. There was no compromise in that. And yes, you can talk about the batteries and all of that, and you know what's all wrong with that. And well, then it's a transition technology. This is what we were talking about in the beginning, right? That it's better than gas fuel cars, but people are just looking at what is wrong with it. And yes, of course, the minerals are bad if you get them in the wrong place. But like, again, asteroid mining, that could be the next thing that AI could help us about with. So this was inherently something good, because he showed that we can live and have vehicles without gas. And there are electric vehicles now that actually are solar vehicles. There are even solar planes now, believe it or not, small ones, but they have a solar charging truck. And there are so many. What he has shown is what is possible. And that was only possible because he did that. He became the richest man in the world. And take a look at China, for example. They didn't balance profit and tech advances with sustainability when they went fully into renewables and into solar. They doing now? They're kicking the US's butt in terms of energy, and the US is fully into fuel now, but they are much better. They've got 70% apparently of the world's energy supply in renewables. And not very long time ago, they were supposed to be the biggest culprits when it came to, you know, the environment. And of course, they're still not absolutely perfect because they're a huge country, right? But they didn't compromise. They gained everything. They have much more clean energy now, and although their energy production has gone, their the bad stuff, so the pollution has gone down. It's the World Economic Forum says this, and they've got scalable energy for AI and for the AI war. I mean, this is or AI competition. Let's call it an AI competition. They always want to make everything about war nowadays, so let's call it an AI competition. But this is not compromise. They won in both cases. They won on the tech side and they won on the sustainability side. There is no win-lose anywhere. There's no compromise. There's no balance. It is possible, and there's so many examples, and we're showing quite a few of them on LinkedIn. I'm sorry that I'm getting so passionate about this, but it's just sometimes you actually have to get really passionate about this because otherwise people just don't listen. You have to have a strong pattern interrupt. So please, please do take a look at the win-win situations. And is it always easy to find them? No, of course not. But we don't have to make it unnecessarily difficult. And that is why we need to be creative. And that is what business has always been about, being creative since the beginning of time. And is it always easy to be creative in that way? No, but that is why we pass on win-win situations in our podcast, in our LinkedIn posts. And if you take a look at my profile, again, I can link it in here somewhere, you can find that I've posted on linked win-win situations between humans and the environment since probably about 2017 and on an almost daily basis. So you can find a huge amount of examples. You can find examples on our website, www.nevelle.de or nevelle.co.uk. Some of them are in German, but a lot of them are in English. The PDFs are in English. There's a lot of environmental news that are positive. So please do take a look. So this is what our contribution has been and is unto this point. What is yours? How do you make the world a better place? And again, as I don't know what is going on and what is happening in the future here with me or generally, I don't know. There is a win-win course on Substack, and at the moment you can get it for literally €1 if you're one of the founding members. There's not many available, but there are enough available right now. So if you want to take a look, it will be a course that is about win-win situations that we have put together quite a while ago, but also about mindset, what can stand in the way. A few things I've said today, but there are other things that can stand in the way as well. Also on the other side, if you want to help implement change or ask people to change, then there are a few things that you should be aware of. And also there are change management techniques in there because I did change management for a long time in investment banks. And they are very good with huge scaled changes. And there are things that you should be aware of. We also wrote a book, of course, to make change easier for the employees themselves. But that is another matter. We can also link that here. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you again in future. Again, I can't guarantee you that this will be going on a regular basis every week from now on. I'll do it for as long as it is possible. But if it disappears, you've got a lot of material. Okay? So this was Petra Lohmeyer from Nevelle.